Welcome to What's Growing On with AARP. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your co-host, Ann Hales, AARP Alabama's Associate State Director for Outreach in Central Alabama. And I'd like to welcome you back and welcome our true expert in this, co-host, Terrence Lanier with Victory Teaching Farm in Mobile. Terrence, this was a great episode last week. We had a lot of questions in the comments. If you missed last week's show, you can always go back and watch it on AARP's Facebook page or YouTube page. Easy to find. Look under the videos on our Facebook page, and under YouTube, you'll see it under our What's Growing On section. And remember that we want to hear from you. Type in, if you have questions today during this segment, type in your questions in the comments and we will try to get to those. Or you can email Terrence, and let me put Terrence, let me put your information there on the screen. It shows if you have questions or episode ideas, if you'd like to suggest episodes for us, we're always looking for more ideas. We'll be doing this going into the future. So you can contact Terrence at tlanier@victoryteachingfarm.org. Terrence, I'm so excited because I like to do this. Today we are discussing indoor gardening. Some folks just don't have the time or the ability or the space to do an outside garden, but we can do it inside. There are some challenges with that, but this is a perfect opportunity for people to learn how they can grow things inside. Tell us, how can we really and truly have an indoor garden?
Well, there are a couple of things that you really need to have a successful indoor garden. And before we hit that first slide, Ann, I did want to mention something as we talk about indoor gardens. We here in Alabama are about to have one of our first true cold snaps. And so as we talk about indoor gardens, I know down here in South Mobile County, we are under freeze warning. So I know more north you get in Alabama, the temperatures are going to be much colder. And so really right now, bring in those plants that need to be protected from the cold, and those that are in ground that you need to, protect as well. You need to go ahead and throw a sheet over them this evening, or if you've already got some sort of insulated type material that you use to cover your plants. I mean, some of our gardeners that are full force gardeners have those materials already available and ready to cover their gardens that are outdoors. But tonight is the night. This is the first night. So bring indoors anything you can bring indoors and cover anything outside that needs to be covered. I'm not quite sure. I haven't looked at the weather yet to determine if you guys up north of us are going to get a hard freeze or not. I don't think anybody's getting a hard freeze. And what's it like there for you guys?
I don't think it's a hard freeze either, but it is a freeze. It is cold. It's very cold, but I don't think we're getting a long, hard freeze for any sustainable, by morning it'll warm up. But yeah,
right.
Something
so
that
some of your greens and things like that. Yeah, some of your greens and things should be fine. Just depending how north you are. Hard freeze is what will get things. So if it's just a slight freeze or a frost, most of your greens and things like that should be fine without even covering them. Actually, it'll make them a little sweeter. But since we're on the topic of indoors and gardening, I did want to throw that out there to everybody real quick to be aware of that we need to bring them in and protect them.
That's good, because we want to protect what we already have, for sure.
Absolutely.
So then let's get into the basics of what we need to start an indoor garden. Let me put up that slide. And just tell us a little bit about what we really need to get started.
Okay, so obviously you need a sunny location in your home, a sunny window or a sunny windowsill, depending on what it is that you're wanting to try to grow indoors. And that window or area needs to get pretty much full sun all day. Because our plants need sun, 6 to 8 hours, if not more, depending on what it is. So in order to be successful with your indoor gardens, you're going to have a sunny spot. Your pots or your containers, you need to make sure that there's a bottom protecting those plants, because you're going to be watering them, and the last thing you want to do is water plants and come back to big puddles all over your windowsill. So, I mean, you know, a lot of containers come with those pre-made kind of water catch bottoms to them, or you can even use a plate. I've actually had little small pots where I've just folded up paper towels underneath just to catch the little bit of water. So there's a lot of ways you can do that, but just remember, you're going to be watering something inside. And so you want to make sure you have something to catch that excess that drains through, so you won't damage your, you know, your windowsill or your floors. And then a spray bottle for misting. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, why we need to mist our plants. But these are basics that you need to be able to be successful at indoor gardening.
So that's good information. There's not really any specific kind of misting bottle that you have to have, right? But I would think you probably don't want to go and get one of your reuse a bottle, like a cleaning bottle, like a cleaning fluid bottle, because it might have some residue left in it.
Right. I would not. And you can buy just little spray bottles at a dollar store. I mean, they're not expensive. You can buy like industrial size ones at, you know, Lowe's, Home Depot, you know, your garden center type places. I mean, they're easy to find and they're not expensive. So
great. So now that we know what things we have to get started with, what kinds of plants are good to grow inside?
Well, herbs, definitely. Herbs are, you know, easy to grow inside. They don't take up a huge amount of space. Now, granted, something like rosemary, you know, given the space, a lot of herbs will take the space and they will expand and grow. But if you keep them in a pot, they kind of will maintain their size. Green onions and scallions, another thing that doesn't take up, and chives, that doesn't take up a lot of space, that grow very well inside. Celery, and we'll talk about celery a little later on too, about kind of a cool aspect of celery, and lettuces. These are things that don't take up a huge amount of space. Radishes, now radishes, you do need a little bit more space for them, but you can still grow a pot of radishes, and they are actually a very quick producing veggie. 30 days and you've got a harvest. You also can try your hand at smaller variety tomatoes. You have varieties that are indeterminate and determinate. And what that means is either they are a bush kind of variety, or they're indeterminate, meaning that they just vine and grow crazy. So you want to kind of look at that when you're growing inside. And you can grow peppers inside as well. Again, you just have to have that source of sunlight. That is the most important thing, and I can't stress that enough, that if you're going to grow indoors, you have to have a constant source of sunlight. And so those are kind of my picks for what is easy to grow inside. And
that's great. Those are some neat things to be able to grow inside. Can you, if you don't have a good sunny window, can you use grow lights? I've seen those. I don't have one. Can you do that? And what would you look for?
You can, and any of your garden centers have those grow lights, and you can actually just ask anyone in the garden center. You can order them offline as well. It's essentially kind of like a fluorescent light. A lot of people have them in their kitchens, like underneath the counter over the sink and things like that. But they're easily accessible locally, any place. I mean, you can get them probably at your big box stores as well as your garden centers. And those work as well. So you can use the grow lights if you want to go that route, of course.
Okay. Because I just think, even at my house, the best place for my light is not the best place to grow the plant. I mean, it's the best place to get the light, but it's not necessarily the best place for me to try to put a plant, because my animals will get to it from those spots. So I'd have to think of some other spots. So a grow light might be something to do.
Oh, yeah.
So we also have some challenges that you might have. So let's talk a little bit about that, because growing inside is different than growing outside. And even outside, you have different challenges. But what are the challenges that we will have looking at inside?
Okay, so we've already mentioned one that, that's the last thing on here, lack of adequate sunlight. And so don't let that deter you from growing inside, because again, like you mentioned, Ann, you can purchase a grow light to grow your plants. But inside, you have less heat to dry out your plants, which a lot of times will lead you to overwater. So less is more when you're growing inside, so you don't overwater. I mean, you want the soil moist to the touch, but you just kind of have to gauge it of whether or not, you're watering too much, because overwatering can lead to root rot and things like that. You also have less humidity inside. And so this is where your plants can dry out. I know it seems kind of contradictory there that you have less heat to dry them out, but then you have less humidity to keep them from drying out. But this is where your spray bottles come into play. And you can just lightly mist your plants throughout the day, just their leaves, and just give them a light little mist every other day or something like that, just to keep that humidity in the leaves so they don't dry out. And that's more so for the leaves and such as opposed to the roots. And then again, we've talked about the sunlight issue. So, and those are basically your major challenges.
That's good information to have, so that we know what we're looking at before we do it and can get prepared for that. And I didn't think about that you really need to watch for that watering and not do too much inside. I was thinking more that it would dry out more, that I'd need to water more. So that's really helpful to me. Let's look at our next slide. We're going to talk about some of the benefits to growing plants indoors.
Yes. So the benefits of indoor gardening, fresh herbs and veggies at your fingertips. There's no greater feeling than, deciding, oh, I'd love, a fresh green onion with my dinner tonight, and being able just to go snip one off right there at your, kitchen, window. We actually did that for Thanksgiving with our turkey. We social distanced at home and cooked at home, and we are not used to doing that. But so we decided to stuff our turkey with rosemary. Well, we have rosemary. So it was wonderful to be able to run outside and snip those veggies, and have them, right at our fingertips without having to run to the grocery or anything like that. Another benefit of indoor gardening is that you have protection from the elements. So you don't have to worry about, some of us are probably concerned today about the cold temperatures, affecting our plants, or even just extensive heat and lack of rain. You have a little bit more control over the environment. And then also protection from pests. You don't have to worry about the bugs and things like that you would when you're gardening outside. Plants are also natural air purifiers. So they, opposite of us, they give off oxygen, and they naturally purify your air, which I think is a really cool aspect of that. And then just the therapeutic side of it. And I think, Ann, you wanted to touch on the therapeutic side with gardening, especially indoor gardening.
Well, indoor, we've noticed that, and we've talked about this with AARP, that it is a great way to do something with a person you're caring for. So if you're a caregiver and you're caring for someone, you can together do some kind of grow some plants indoors or outdoors. And it's just a nice thing to do with each other, and it helps pass the time a little bit, and it gives you something to do. And or you can just do it yourself. It's a good way to take 5 minutes away just to kind of de-stress and relax. And then, I do know that sometimes if this becomes stressful to you, rather than being something that is not stressful, we want it to be a calming thing. But if it becomes stressful, then just get rid of that plant, or give it to someone that you're, or something like that. Don't just get rid of it, but give it to somebody. Don't worry about it. So, but yeah, the caregiving aspect, I think it's a nice thing to be able to do with someone else.
Well, and I think we were all,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I think you and I, right before the show, we were kind of talking about it gives people some purpose. So if you're used to going out and volunteering on a regular basis, or if you were working, part-time somewhere and that job is no longer because of, everyone kind of working from home, it kind of gives you another purpose, something to do, something to take care of. And interestingly enough, there has been scientific proof that the microbes in soil, so if you're getting your hands in the dirt, the microbes in soil actually are an antidepressant. So I've read several scientific studies on that, and they're saying that getting your hands dirty is really good for your mental.
That's fascinating. I had no clue about that. I did know it's good for your mental health, but I had no idea it might be because of the microbes in the soil. That is fascinating. It's definitely therapeutic. It's nice to care for something and to watch it grow and to nurture it and just to see things grow before your eyes. It's just really nice. Can you talk a little bit about the things that we can grow from veggie scraps? This is another thing that's fascinating to me. You can use your scraps and actually grow something from those.
Yeah, so this is what when I was mentioning, we'll talk about this with celery and lettuces later in the show. You actually, and the graphics actually show you exactly how to do this. So with your celery, after you've used your celery, you just can take that bottom part of the celery and stick it down in a cup of water or a bowl of water, and it will regenerate a new celery stalk. The same thing with lettuce. Lettuce does the same exact thing, and the same thing with green onions. And with green onions, I know a lot of us like that white part of the green onion because it's just the most flavorful, and I really love it. But if you just snip it right at the very edge of the onion, you still get that really good white part and your green onion. But if you can see in the picture, just leave it just right above the soil. It'll immediately grow new green onions. So you'll have a constant supply. Especially with green onions, because they grow pretty quickly. So I thought that was neat to mention that those are three things that we can continue to grow. And the same thing with your herbs. I mean, as you continue to harvest those herbs, they continue to grow more. So they're really good things to have indoors because it's not a one-time harvest kind of thing. Like, for instance, with radishes, once you harvest your radishes, you've got to plant a new crop if you want more. But with things like the green onions and the lettuces and things like that, you can have a constant supply. And then I see there's a question.
There is. Let me put that on the screen. Are there any vegetables we can grow indoors that we cannot grow indoors?
I mean, yes, things that are large, like I was saying, like the indeterminate tomatoes. I mean, you could definitely attempt it if you had the space, if you had a huge, indoor picture window that was full sun all day long. You definitely could probably try your hand at growing, some of these massive varieties of tomatoes that just vine and spread. You could probably, if you have the right conditions, could probably grow almost anything indoors, but it's just having those right conditions. And so the lists that we put up on the screen earlier were really your best bets. But hey, you can experiment with anything. I think you could grow greens indoors, like collard greens. You can put them in a pot and grow them indoors. But again, it all goes back to really having those ideal conditions, plenty of sunlight, making sure, they're getting adequate water, but not too much. But really, again, the sunlight is the biggest issue for being able to grow things indoors.
Okay. That's some more good information. Let's talk about, let's look, we had that one question. There's another question is, do you need to fertilize indoor plants more often than outdoor plants?
No, you're just going to, and we talked about this last episode, just making sure your soil is rich in nitrogen and calcium and phosphorus, and I believe the other was magnesium. But these are things that can come from, like we talked about, composting, coffee grounds and eggshells and banana peels. And you actually could sprinkle those eggshells or those coffee grounds around your plants indoors to have kind of a constant slow release fertilizing. And the thing about that is when you're using compost and you're using kind of these organic methods of fertilizer, you can't overdo it with your plants. You can't, when you buy the commercial fertilizers that are not kind of organically based,
right.
If you use too much, you can burn your plants. And even some organic fertilizers, like, if people have farms and things like that, manure, especially chicken, is really good, but it's so high in nitrogen that if you don't let it sit for several months before you put it on your plants, it can burn your plants. That, just maintaining, and again, like we talked about last episode, your plants are going to tell you when they're needing those vitamins and minerals. They're either going to kind of yellow a little bit or droop or not produce like you think that they should be producing. And a simple soil test from any of your local garden centers, you can grab one of those just to see what you need. But I mean, I swear by the coffee grounds and the veggie scraps and the eggshells. They seem to always do the trick.
Okay, that sounds pretty easy. It's something that we have on hand.
Okay.
Another question is do you need to wait for when you're planting outside, you plant according to seasons and what will grow in season. Do you not worry about that, but do you think about that or consider that when you're growing inside as well? Or is any season, do seasons affect indoor growing plants?
Well, certainly the position of the sun is going to be an issue for where your sunlight is, because of course in the winter the sun is much lower than it is in the summer, and so that may impact your growing space indoors. People grow year round in greenhouses and things like that, but the environment is specifically controlled for that specific plant. So seasonally, greens prefer cool weather. They will think that if they get too warm, they will think that it's the end of their season and they'll start to go to seed. So trying to grow indoor, it's just, again, controlling the environment. I mean, if you're an expert at it and you do your research, you probably could grow almost anything indoors year round. It's just maintaining that environment that those plants are used to and they thrive in.
Okay, this has been such good information and something I need to bring some plants inside then for tonight before it really gets really cold. And then get ready, get the things that I need to plant some more things inside and try my hand at that. Anybody, if you have questions, we're still on for a couple of minutes. And if you have any questions, we will be glad to address those in the comments. We have one more.
We have one.
We do. From Tawana, says, do I need to worry about plants getting too much coffee grinds or eggshells?
Okay. Good morning, Tawana. I think you're a repeat watcher, so welcome back. We're glad to have you. No, not necessarily, because it's kind of a slow release as the coffee grounds and the eggshells break down. Now, I wouldn't pile it around the plant. I mean, you can always get too much of a good thing with anything. But the thing about it is it's not going to necessarily hurt them, but I would just do it within reason. I mean, you don't want to, if you have, a couple of eggs and a pot of coffee every morning, I would not put them on every single day, because then you're also going to, crowd up your soil and your plant. But, once a week, every other week, an eggshell and, a little bit of coffee grounds shouldn't hurt at all.
Okay. She has another question. Yeah, I'm a first-time winter gardener. Can I still plant greens? And I think you've talked about this a little bit. You want to talk about that some more?
You can, and I know down here in South Alabama, I'm not quite sure where you are, Tawana, but you know, we've grown greens well into March. And so the greens, it's the warmer temperatures that impact your greens, because again, they are a cool weather variety vegetable. And so when it gets warm, they think internally it is time to go to seed. And so they will, what we call bolt, and they'll start producing their flowers, which can alter the taste of the plant as well. It makes it a little bit more bitter. But the further north you are, the longer your cool weather growing season is. But like I said, down here in South Alabama, we're able to grow our greens well into the first couple of months of the year. So you are not too late. I wouldn't start from seed necessarily, but if you can get some transplants, I would absolutely go ahead and do that. And quite honestly, here in my own home garden, we are still getting ready to put in more greens. So I think you're good no matter where you are in the state.
Great. Okay, so once again, I will post these slides that you saw today in the comment section of the broadcast. You'll see them on Facebook and on YouTube. Don't forget to comment or email Terrence with questions or ideas. You can still comment after this is over, and we will try to respond to those. And you saw, Terrence, your email again. Let me put that up really quickly so people can have that. It's Lanier, Lanier, at victoryteachingfarm.org.
Yep. And I try to go back after the episode, a couple of hours after the episode, and just kind of look back through and make sure we didn't miss a last minute comment or anything like that. But if we do, please feel free to email me or hop on our next episode and throw that question up. We try to answer any questions that we didn't get to from the previous episode. We try to answer those at the top of each new episode. So, just reach out to us in any of those ways, and we'll make sure to get you the info that you're looking for.
Great. In our next episode, so you can bring your questions to the next episode, which will be December 14th, we're going to be talking about gifts that you can make straight from your garden.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be good. So thanks for joining us today. And Terrence, thanks for teaching us something new. Stay tuned for a few seconds. We're going to put on a video that will show our upcoming events. We have a lot of good things coming up this month. So stay tuned. Again, Terrence, thank you so much.
Thank you. See y'all on the 14th.
Bye-bye.
Bye.